The fence appeared overnight, slicing straight through the middle of Mark Ellison's pool patio like a scar across calm water. By sunrise, his quiet backyard no longer felt like his own. What began as a simple morning swim was about to uncover a shocking twist that would ripple through the entire neighborhood. Mark had lived in the community for 6 peaceful years. He followed every rule, paid every due, and kept his home immaculate. His backyard pool was his sanctuary, a place where he unwound after long days and watched golden sunsets reflect across the water. But now a tall wooden fence stood just inches from the pool's edge, dividing the deck and blocking access to half the patio. Fresh posts were cemented into the stonework. New boards gleamed in the early light. Confused and unsettled, Mark walked the length of the barrier, searching for an explanation. On the far side, attached neatly to the wood, hung a laminated notice signed by the HOA president. Mark read the notice twice, certain he had misunderstood. It stated that the fence had been installed to correct boundary alignment and to ensure compliance with community safety guidelines. Boundary alignment made no sense. His property lines had been surveyed when he purchased the home, and the pool deck sat well within his lot. Yet the fence cut through his patio as if someone had redrawn the map overnight. Neighbors walking their dogs slowed to stare. Their curious glances made the moment feel even more unreal. Mark felt a quiet pressure building in his chest, not anger, but disbelief at the invasion of his private space. He called the HOA office and was told the president, Linda Carver, had authorized the installation following a visual boundary review. The phrase sounded informal, almost careless. Standing beside his divided patio, Mark realized this wasn't a misunderstanding that would resolve itself. Someone had acted without
Mark
his
knocked
consent,
on Linda
and
Carver's
they believed
front
they had
door,
the authority
determined
to
to
resolve the matter calmly. She greeted him with a polite smile that never reached her eyes. She explained that during a recent landscaping inspection, she noticed his pool decking appeared to extend beyond the original boundary markers. The fence, she insisted, was installed to prevent liability concerns and to maintain uniform property lines within the community. Mark listened carefully, then explained that his purchase documents included a certified survey showing the deck fully within his property. Linda responded with a brief nod but insisted the HOA had the right to enforce adjustments for neighborhood consistency. Her tone remained composed, yet final. She suggested he submit a request for review if he disagreed. Walking back home, Mark felt the weight of the situation settle over him. The fence stood where it had no right to be, dividing not just his patio, but his sense of peace. And it was clear the burden to fix it had been placed on him. Mark spent the evening reviewing his closing documents, survey maps, and permits from the original pool installation. Every record confirmed the same truth: the deck and patio were fully compliant and entirely within his property lines. The next morning, he hired a licensed surveyor to verify the boundaries again. When the measurements were completed, the result matched the original survey precisely. The fence had been built several feet inside Mark's property. The surveyor shook his head, noting that installing a permanent structure across someone's deck without approval could create serious legal complications. Mark stood beside the barrier, staring at the posts drilled into his stone patio. The fence didn't just divide space, it symbolized a line someone believed they could draw through his rights. Armed with documentation, Mark submitted a formal dispute to the HOA board and requested immediate removal. Days passed without response, and the fence remained standing under the bright summer sun. The silence from the HOA felt deliberate. Meanwhile, the divided patio disrupted Mark's daily life. He had to walk around the barrier just to access his pool equipment. Even routine maintenance felt awkward and intrusive. Neighbors quietly expressed support, admitting they had seen similar overreach attempts but never something so bold. Their concern confirmed that this conflict was larger than a fence, it was about precedent. After a week without action, Mark consulted a property attorney. The lawyer reviewed the surveys, photographs, and HOA notice, then explained that the installation likely constituted an encroachment and unauthorized alteration of private property. A formal legal notice was sent requesting removal and restoration of the patio. 2 days later, the HOA responded through counsel, asserting their authority and declining immediate removal. Standing beside the still fence, Mark felt a calm resolve replace uncertainty. If clarity required patience and legal process, he was prepared to see it through to the end. Weeks later, a mediation session was scheduled between Mark and the HOA board. Documents were presented, surveys examined, and installation procedures reviewed in detail. It became increasingly clear that no formal boundary adjustment had been approved. and no homeowner consent had been obtained before construction began. The fence, though neat and professionally installed, stood in the wrong place. Linda Carver maintained that her actions were intended to protect community standards, but the mediator emphasized that standards could not override verified property lines. The turning point came when the contractor's report confirmed the fence posts had been anchored directly into Mark's patio without authorization. The room fell quiet. The issue was no longer about interpretation, it was about clear overreach. By the end of the session, an agreement was drafted requiring removal of the fence and restoration of the patio surface. Yet an unexpected consequence was still to come. Within days, contractors returned to remove the fence and repair the stonework where the posts had been anchored. The patio was restored, the open space returned, and sunlight once again reflected freely across the pool. But the final review revealed something surprising. Linda's elevated deck extension, built the previous year, extended beyond her approved property setback and partially onto HOA common space without proper permits. To maintain consistency and compliance, the board required its removal. The structure that had prompted her strict enforcement now faced enforcement itself. Mark never celebrated the outcome. He simply resumed his quiet evenings by the water, grateful for the return of peace and the clarity that airness had prevailed. Neighbors spoke of the incident for months, not as gossip, but as a reminder that rules must apply equally and respect must guide authority, and that was the final twist in this unbelievable HOA story. If you love the drama, don't forget to like, subscribe, and drop a comment sharing your thoughts. It really helps this channel grow.